Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. It began innocently enough, or at least I convinced myself it had. I had been married to James for nearly a decade, a man who loved me in his quiet, methodical way. Our life together was stable, predictable, and comfortable, the kind of life that neighbors envied and friends admired. Yet, somewhere beneath the surface of our perfect routine, there was a restlessness in me, a quiet ache that had been growing for years, unnoticed by all but myself. Her name was Vanessa. She was James's colleague, someone I met at a work event, but her presence was impossible to ignore. Vanessa had an energy that radiated in every room she entered, bold, unapologetic, magnetic. There was a confidence in the way she moved, the way her eyes lingered just a second too long, a subtle spark that seemed to ignite the air between us whenever we crossed paths. I told myself repeatedly that it was nothing, that I was imagining things, reading too much into harmless smiles, but deep down, I knew desire had taken root. Our interactions started with innocent conversations, shared laughter over office, gossip, subtle compliments that lingered just a little longer than necessary. She had a way of seeing me, truly seeing me, as if she could peel away all the layers I had built over the years. The first time her hand brushed mine, purely accidental, she insisted. I felt a jolt, like electricity racing through my veins. I tried to suppress it, tried to dismiss it as meaningless, but the seed had been planted. It wasn't until one late evening, after James had gone on a business trip, that everything changed. Vanessa called, her voice soft, almost conspiratorial. "I need to see you," she said. My heart skipped, and a part of me knew that this was no longer casual, no longer harmless. I agreed, giving her an address of a quiet apartment I sometimes used for work when the office was closed. When she arrived, the tension between us was palpable. The room was dimly lit, casting shadows that seemed to wrap around us. We talked for a while, voices low, hearts thudding against ribs in a rhythm that seemed to echo the unspoken pull between us. And then, without warning, she moved closer, her fingers brushing against my arm, tracing patterns that left me shivering. "Don't speak," she whispered, her voice almost a command, a mixture of desire and authority that made my stomach knot. And then her nails, soft yet firm, drew a path across my skin, leaving faint impressions that burned in their intensity. I froze, a mixture of shock and thrill coursing through me. Every nerve in my body was alive, every thought consumed by her presence. From that moment, the night became a blur of restrained passion and whispered confessions. Her hands explored me in ways I hadn't realized I had longed for. Every touch was a lesson in temptation, every look a silent admission of the dangerous desire that had grown between us. We moved together, discovering a rhythm that was both desperate and deliberate, as if we'd been waiting for this collision of emotions and urges for a lifetime. In the days and weeks that followed, the affair escalated with a precision that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. Vanessa became my secret world, a forbidden refuge where I could shed the weight of expectation and surrender to passion. Meetings were carefully orchestrated, late-night rendezvous in hotel rooms, whispered encounters in empty streets, the thrill of almost being caught enhancing every sensation. At work, we wore masks of professionalism, our stolen glances and subtle touches hidden beneath the veneer of normalcy. Every encounter outside the bedroom, the brief touch on the arm, a brush of hands as we passed papers, was charged with a quiet electricity, a reminder of what lay beneath the surface. The secrecy made every moment more intense, more consuming, yet the emotional complexity grew heavier with time. I loved James in a way, yes, a safe, familiar love, but Vanessa awakened something primal and urgent that could not be ignored. I found myself torn, caught between loyalty and desire, between a life I had built and a hunger that threatened to undo it all. Vanessa, too, was not immune to guilt. There were nights when she would pull back, her eyes filled with conflict. Yet the magnetic pull between us never lessened. The affair reached a crescendo one stormy evening. Rain lashed against the windows of the secluded apartment we had rented. For the night, a retreat from the world that felt like our own universe. Candles flickered in the dim light, shadows dancing across the walls as we surrendered to each other completely. Her hands, now unrestrained, traced every curve, every line, every secret corner of my body. Her nails, once a gentle warning now, left marks of possession, a reminder of the intensity and intimacy we shared. "I can't stop," she whispered, her voice low and urgent, her fingers digging into my skin with a mix of pleasure and insistence. "I need you like this, like us." And I needed her just as desperately. In that storm-drenched room, there was no past, no future, no consequence, only the raw, unfiltered connection that had bound us from the start. We moved together, exploring desire and surrender, discovering the depths of passion and the fragility of secrecy. Eventually, reality intruded. The fear of discovery, the weight of guilt, and the knowledge that our actions could destroy lives crept back in. Yet, the memory of that night and countless others that followed in secret lingered, etched into my mind with the permanence of fire. Every glance, every touch, every whisper between us became a part of my identity, a hidden layer beneath the life I outwardly maintained. Years later, the memory of Vanessa remains vivid, a ghost of desire that cannot be erased. I still remember the command in her voice, the pressure of her nails, the way her presence consumed me entirely. She was the forbiddance, the dangerous, the intoxicating and indelible chapter in a life otherwise ordinary. That night and all the nights that followed were a revelation. Desire could awaken in the most unexpected places, and passion could thrive even in the shadow of betrayal. Even now, decades later, I can feel the ghost of her touch, the thrill of secrecy, and the undeniable intensity of a love that existed only in the margins of my life, a love that reminded me in ways I could never forget of the fragile, intoxicating, and destructive power of infidelity. After that first night with Vanessa, my life became a careful balancing act between the world I had built with James and the secret world she had opened to me. Each morning, I rose with the familiar hum of domesticity, making coffee, organizing the small chaos of everyday life, smiling at James with a practiced warmth. And yet, beneath the surface, my thoughts were consumed with Vanessa, her voice, her touch, her magnetic presence, the contrast between my safe, predictable life and the thrilling, dangerous connection with her was unbearable at times. We devised secret ways to meet. Lunches for work became fleeting hours in quiet cafes. Hotel rooms rented under false pretenses served as our sanctuary, and the occasional empty office provided a stolen intimacy that made my pulse race. Each encounter was a dance between desire and caution. Vanessa knew exactly how to push the boundaries, her nails occasionally grazing my skin as a reminder of the tension between us, a mix of pleasure and sharp warning that left me trembling. One evening, after James had gone to a networking event, Vanessa called. Her voice was low, urgent, and commanding. "Come over," she demanded, the tone brooking no refusal. I arrived at the apartment she had rented for these moments of secrecy, my heart hammering with anticipation and guilt. She was waiting, leaning against the doorway, her eyes dark with longing. We didn't speak at first. Our foreheads touched, breaths mingling, until her fingers found my arms and traced patterns that made me shiver. "I've missed you," she whispered, her nails pressing briefly into my skin, a thrilling reminder of her presence. Every inch of me was awake, every nerve alive with the tension between desire and fear. That night, we surrendered to each other fully, exploring the depths of passion that had been simmering beneath the surface for months, but the emotional stakes grew heavier with time. I began to notice changes in myself, distracted moments with James, lingering thoughts of Vanessa, an intensity in my emotions that I could neither control nor suppress. Vanessa, too, shared her own vulnerabilities. She admitted, between whispered kisses and stolen touches, that she felt trapped in the routine of her own life, craving connection and excitement in a way that our secret encounters fulfilled. Family gatherings became increasingly difficult to navigate. James would talk about his day, oblivious to the storm beneath my composed exterior. Vanessa and I would communicate in subtle gestures, a fleeting touch under the table, a locked gaze across the room that only we understood. The thrill of the clandestine grew, but so did the guilt. Each smile for James, each act of normalcy, was a performance that gnawed at my conscience. One particularly intense weekend, Vanessa suggested a retreat far from the city, under the guise of a wellness weekend with friends. In reality, it was our opportunity to escape the ever-watchful eyes of the world. The cabin was secluded, surrounded by thick woods, the only sounds the wind in the trees and the occasional cry of distant birds. There, without fear of interruption, our passion exploded in ways neither of us could restrain. Her hands, once gentle, became insistent, digging into my skin as a mix of warning and ownership. I surrendered entirely, letting the tension and desire consume me. Hours blurred into one another. Whispered confessions merged with moans and laughter, revealing truths about ourselves we had never shared. I learned of her fears, her longings, and the parts of her heart that craved connection just as desperately as I did. Returning from that weekend, the return to reality was a cruel contrast. I rejoined James's life, his routines, our home filled with the comfort and stability I had once cherished. But now the quiet moments were fraught with guilt. Every time I touched James's hand, I remembered Vanessa's fingers tracing mine. Every kiss, no matter how tender, was overshadowed by the memory of Forbidden's passion. Then came the new discovery. A neighbor saw me enter Venice's apartment on a rare occasion, a tale that she hastily tried to dismiss someone else. The adrenaline of nearly being caught heightened every encounter, making each subsequent meeting more thrilling, more urgent. We became masters of secrecy, our lives a constant balancing act between desire and fear. Months turned into years, and the pattern persisted. Vanessa became both a secret obsession and a confessor of my deepest thoughts. James remained oblivious, loving me with a quiet, steadfast devotion, unaware of the fire that raged beneath my calm exterior. The affair evolved from purely physical encounters to an emotional entanglement, where words of comfort and understanding mingled with whispers of lust. Yet the consequences were inevitable. The guilt, the tension, and the risk of exposure created cracks in my conscience. I began keeping detailed notes in my mind, planning meetings with precision, always calculating the next move to avoid detection. Each encounter with Vanessa was carefully orchestrated, yet spontaneous enough to feel alive. Every touch, every brush of skin, every whispered word was imbued with meaning, a secret language that only we could decipher. And then, one night, Vanessa pressed her forehead against mine, nails digging softly into my shoulders, and said something that stayed with me. We can't keep living like this forever. One day, someone will get hurt, and it won't be just us. The warning, delivered in the most intimate of ways, was impossible to ignore. I knew she was right, yet the pull between us was too strong, too consuming to resist. Our final months together were marked by a heightened intensity. Every encounter carried a mixture of desperation and longing, every stolen hour charged with the knowledge that it could be the last. We explored every hidden corner of the city, every quiet place where no one would see us, as if etching memories into the world before the inevitable end. When the affair finally ended, it was not with anger, but with a quiet, aching sorrow. We parted with a lingering kiss, her nails brushing my skin one last time, a final reminder of the passion, intimacy, and danger we had shared. I returned fully to James's life, carrying the memory of Vanessa like a shadow that never left. Decades later, I still remember the feel of her touch, the intensity of our encounters, and the thrill of secrecy that made the world disappear. I learned that desire can be unpredictable, passionate, and consuming, capable of existing alongside loyalty and love. Vanessa was my forbidden world, a secret that shaped me, changed me, and left an indelible mark on my heart. She told me to keep quiet, and I did, but the memory, the desire, and the intensity of our love remain, a shadowed echo of a life I once led in secret. After that pivotal weekend at the cabin, my life became a series of carefully orchestrated routines. Each day with James was like walking a tightrope, maintaining the facade of a perfect marriage while carrying the secret of Vanessa's presence in my heart, my mind, and my body. I would rise with him, make breakfast, exchange polite morning kisses, and then retreat to a world inside my mind where Vanessa's hands, her voice, and her nails pressing into my skin replayed endlessly. Vanessa, too, was becoming increasingly vital to my existence. Her calls were coded, brief, and urgent. Coffee could mean meet at the park. Book could mean the library corner we claimed as ours. Each message was electric, a pulse of excitement amid the monotony of my public life. We discovered new ways to meet, hidden paths through quiet streets, unused offices at night, and occasionally, the rented apartment where we could forget the world completely. One evening, she asked me to meet her at a small art gallery after hours. "I have something to show you," she said over the phone, her voice low and husky. When I arrived, the gallery was empty except for us, the dim lights casting long shadows across the room. She took my hand and pressed it against the wall, nails lightly scratching my palm in that familiar, deliciously painful way. "I want to leave a mark," she whispered, her lips brushing my ear. I shivered. The thrill of her dominance, the intimacy, the danger consumed me completely. That night, surrounded by paintings we both admired, we gave ourselves entirely to one another, blending passion, art, and secrecy into a memory I would never forget. Months passed and our encounters became increasingly bold. We began to push limits, exploring every corner of our city as if it were a playground for our desire. Sometimes I would meet her in the hidden terrace of a hotel, the city lights sprawling below us. Other times, we would meet in the dimly lit sections of libraries or empty cinemas. The thrill of being seen or almost seen made every touch, every kiss, every brush of skin electric, yet the emotional stakes grew heavier. Vanessa was no longer just a physical presence. She became my confidant. I told her things I could not voice to James, the small disappointments, the quiet fears, the longing for something more than routine life could provide. She, in turn, shared her vulnerabilities, her own loneliness, her past scars, her craving for a connection that felt real and urgent. Our relationship became a dangerous mix of lust and emotional intimacy, where each encounter strengthened the invisible bond between us. One particularly rainy evening, Vanessa insisted on meeting despite the weather. She opened the door, rain dripping from her hair, eyes dark with need. "I can't wait anymore," she said. My heart pounded as she pressed herself against me, nails digging lightly into my skin as she pulled me toward the bedroom. That night, we explored every inch of each other's desires, our moans mingling with the sound of rain against the windows. Hours slipped away, and the storm outside mirrored the tempest we had created inside the room. The danger of discovery was a constant shadow. A neighbor once saw me leave her apartment and whispered to someone else, igniting a small panic that made every subsequent encounter more calculated, more thrilling. Each meeting became a high-stakes game. Every glance from a passerby, every unexpected phone call, every creak in the floor felt like a warning. The thrill of potential exposure only intensified our passion. Family gatherings became a new arena of tension. Sitting at the same table as James and Vanessa, should she ever appear, was an exercise in control. Our eyes would meet across rooms, communicating silent messages only we understood. A touch of the hand under the table, a fleeting brush of knees, a shared smile, these were the small, illicit languages that defined our connection. I became an expert at concealing desire, at balancing the warmth I felt for James with the inferno I reserved for Vanessa. Inevitably, guilt and obsession intertwined. I began to lose track of time, my thoughts constantly returning to Vanessa. Even mundane tasks became difficult. I would see her face in the crowd at the grocery store or imagine her nails pressing into my skin while washing dishes at home. Desire and morality were in constant conflict, and I often wondered if I was losing myself entirely. One night, after a long day of pretending normalcy, Vanessa called urgently. "I need you," she said, voice low, trembling. I dropped everything and met her in the quiet, hidden corner of an unused office. There, the intensity of our need overtook restraint. Every kiss, every touch, every whisper was imbued with months of repressed longing. Her nails pressed into my shoulders, leaving traces of red that burned both literally and metaphorically. It was dangerous, exhilarating, and unavoidable. Yet Vanessa, for all her desire, also became a voice of caution. "We can't live like this forever," she murmured one night, her forehead pressed to mine, nails digging into my skin in a way that was both tender and commanding. "Someone will get hurt. We need a way forward." The truth in her words was undeniable, yet neither of us could resist the magnetic pull between us. Every attempt to pause, to stop, failed the moment we were near each other. Eventually, the inevitability of exposure loomed larger. Misplaced notes, a slightly too long phone call, and James began to sense something amiss. The confrontation, when it finally came, was both devastating and surreal. Vanessa and I had to face the reality of our actions, the betrayal, the fragility of trust, and the potential destruction of all we held dear. We parted with an aching sorrow, a final kiss, her nails grazing my skin one last time as a reminder of the passion we shared. Years later, the memory persists. I walk through life with James, outwardly content, yet beneath the surface, the shadows of Vanessa remain. I remember the thrill, the danger, the nights of stolen intimacy, and the sharp imprint of her nails on my skin. The affair taught me about desire, risk, and the intoxicating power of connection. It showed me the complexities of love and loyalty, and the impossible choices that desire can compel us to make. Vanessa was my secret, my forbidden world, and even decades later, the memory of her touch, and her presence remains indelible and unforgettable. After that final confrontation, my life with James settled into a tense, fragile routine. Outwardly, I appeared content, devoted even, but beneath the surface, a quiet storm raged. Vanessa's presence had become a permanent echo in my mind, a memory that haunted my quietest moments. I would wake in the middle of the night, heart racing, feeling phantom traces of her nails pressing into my skin, the heat of her lips lingering. On mine, the smell of her perfume filling the room. Despite the affair's end, Vanessa and I couldn't erase the bond that had formed between us. It was more than lust. It had become a lifeline, a mirror to the parts of myself I had hidden from James, from the world. I found myself imagining encounters, mentally reliving the smallest details. Her laugh, the subtle curve of her smile, the way she would look at me with a mixture of possession and reverence. I began to notice how carefully I measured my actions around James. Every hug, every kiss, every whispered word was now weighed against the memory of Vanessa. I could no longer touch James without thinking of her hands, her lips, her nails. Our intimacy became mechanical, functional, and dull. I loved him. Certainly I had loved him for years, but it was a different kind of love, a quiet, steady, dependable love that now felt insufficient. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Vanessa's voice, low and trembling, slipped into my ear like a ghost from the past. "I can't stop thinking about you. I know we shouldn't, but I need to see you." My pulse surged, a mix of guilt, fear, and longing washing over me. We arranged to meet in a quiet, secluded hotel far from our usual haunts. When I arrived, she was waiting, rain dripping from her hair, eyes dark and hungry. We collided immediately, the years of restraint, of separation, melting into urgent desire. That night, we abandoned all caution. Her nails pressed into my skin, with the same intensity as before, leaving traces that burned both physically and emotionally. We explored each other with a hunger that had only grown in our time apart. Every kiss, every caress, every whispered confession deepened the connection, reminding me of the power she held over me. By the time we separated, hours later, the memory of her was seared into me. Impossible to ignore. In the weeks that followed, our meetings became more frequent, more daring. We discovered new places to steal moments, empty office buildings, closed gyms, the roof of a parking garage overlooking the city skyline. Each encounter carried the thrill of danger, the intoxicating mix of desire and risk. We shared secrets and fantasies, each one binding us closer together. Vanessa became my confidant, my secret world, and the flame of passion she ignited consumed every thought I had. Family gatherings became torturous. Seeing James laughing at dinner, completely unaware, while Vanessa's memory lingered like a shadow over every interaction, filled me with both guilt and longing. The contrast between the safe, predictable life I had with James and the fiery, consuming world with Vanessa was unbearable. I found myself craving danger, craving the thrill of being caught, craving the intimacy that James could not provide. One evening, during a particularly lavish holiday party, I caught Vanessa's gaze. Across the room, her eyes locked on mine, a spark of recognition and unspoken desire passing between us. The risk of exposure made my pulse race. We excused ourselves under the guise of stepping outside for air, our hands brushing, sending jolts of electricity through me. Behind closed doors, we gave ourselves to each other with a desperation that defied reason. The danger heightened every touch, every whispered word, and by the time we parted, we were both trembling with the intensity of our connection. Months passed, and the affair escalated into a delicate, dangerous dance. We began leaving subtle messages for each other, a lipstick mark on a note, a carefully chosen book with a hidden page, a scarf left behind with the faint scent of perfume. Each signal carried the weight of secrecy, a private language only we understood. The tension, the fear of discovery only fueled our passion, but as the affair deepened, so did the consequences. I found myself emotionally torn, my love for James clashing violently with the irresistible pull of Vanessa. Nights of guilt followed nights of ecstasy. I began to question who I truly was, whether I was still the devoted wife James believed me to be, or a woman irreversibly changed by forbidden desire. Vanessa's presence forced me to confront the hidden parts of myself, the longing for danger, passion, and emotional intimacy that I had buried beneath years of routine. Inevitably, the secret world we had built began to crumble. A misplaced text, an observant neighbor, and the first hints of suspicion began to appear. James noticed the subtle changes in my distracted glances, the faint scent of another on my clothing. The confrontation came slowly, insidiously, and when it finally happened, it was devastating. The betrayal, the secrecy, the depth of our actions came crashing down on all of us. Vanessa and I were forced to confront the reality of our choices, the love, the passion, the desire we shared, and the irreparable damage it could cause. The affair ended, but the memory endured. Even as I returned fully to life with James, Shadow Vanessa lingered. I would see her at social events, and our eyes would meet, carrying the weight of unspoken truths. Every brush of memory, the nails, the whispered confessions, the stolen nights of passion remained etched into my heart. Years later, I still feel it. The thrill, the danger, the intimacy, and the forbidden intensity of Vanessa remains a permanent part of me. She taught me about desire, about the fragility of trust, and the intoxicating power of passion. She reminded me that love and desire are not always aligned and that the human heart is capable of extraordinary contradictions. She was my secret, my temptation, my forbidden world, and no matter how much time passes, the memory of her touch, her nails digging into my skin, and the raw intensity of our connection will never fade.